All right, yes, I do. We are officially live, and I just wanted to show our wonderful peas. This is just so beautiful. Look at them. Still waiting for people, but
we can give them some more fertilizer and then they'll probably produce even more.
yes. I'm gonna wait here for a little bit for some people to join in.
Awesome.
Isn't this so beautiful? Well, no one is on there, so should we still start? Look at our beautiful peas coming out. Isn't this wonderful? We planted these about maybe like a month and a half ago, and they're doing really well. There's actually one here that is purple. It's a purple pea growing, so that's exciting. I can't wait for that one to mature. Here's another one, another purple pea. And these are beautiful green ones. Me and Andreas just had some peas today. So happy that these are finally maturing and we can eat them, and hopefully we can also donate some to the Season Food Pantry. Okay, so now we're gonna show about transplanting new plants to the aquaponic system.
Yeah, looks like the label that I put came out. Oh no, there it is. These were started a month and a half ago, so they're actually pretty old and grown out. During this time of year, in general, seedlings are going to take a little bit longer. It's colder, not as much sunlight, so that's fine. These could have gone in 2 weeks ago, honestly.
Wow.
Like right now, I would say, even 3 weeks ago. Like right now, I would say a month is pretty typical for brassicas like kale. But let's cut to the chase for today. So again, I am Andreas. Nice to see you once again, everybody. I am your garden coordinator here at the Maryland Magrum Center Wellness Garden, and this is our aquaponic system. This is why I was originally brought here in the first place back in 2019, because this is one of my areas of specialty. I've been taking care of aquaponic systems for 4 years, and pretty much as a career, and for a while now it's full-time again, I would say, and a lot of it has been full-time as an aquaponic technician. This is an aquaponic system. What is an aquaponic system, you might ask? Well, as you can see, if you bring it in here, there's no soil in here. We don't have any soil. We have these expanded clay pebbles, and so basically what they do is they take this special clay and they put it in a giant rotary kiln that turns around and around, and fires the clay at really high temperatures, and it puffs up like popcorn. If you look inside one of these that broke, you can see the porous structure. And so we have a lot of surface area here. And what is surface area good for? It's good for microbes. And so we need to have beneficial microbes in aquaponics. And what do the beneficial microbes do? They break down the fish waste. And in here, in this fish tank right here, we have some tilapia. So really, really exciting. So yeah, this is our aquaponic system. And basically what it is it's a soilless cultivation system where we grow plants using fish waste. That's pretty much what it is, and the whole process is mediated by this beneficial bacteria. And today we'll be showing you how to start seeds for aquaponics. Well, not how to start seeds, how to transplant seedlings. Sorry. I was running around this morning like crazy, and I'm tired already, trying to get spring seedlings started for us. I've planted probably like 13 or 14 six-packs just this morning, and we're going to transplant these guys. So we're going to pick 9 really good-looking seedlings and put them in the system. And remember, it's, if you were tuning into the live stream last week, it's sort of a similar procedure to planting in a hydroponic system. We have our bucket right here. We want to fill it with dechlorinated water. A little bit at least, you don't need too much. This is a hose filter, it's a garden hose filter. And these are great if you're doing aquaponics or even just any kind of organic garden, you know, because you don't want to have chlorine in your water. The soil biology and the biology in our system is really important, and we don't want to hurt that biology, so it's good to have some kind of filter that can remove chlorine from the water. And this one also removes heavy metals. Good stuff in general. So we'll just get a little bit of water this time. And this is actually going to be really quick. We're going to have tons of time to talk about other stuff on this live stream, so I'm really excited. We'll take a little tour around the garden and talk a bit more about what's going on besides the peas. You know, the peas are probably the most exciting thing that's happening right now. Thank you, Brianna, for planting those lovely peas. They're doing very well. But I figured we might as well, if we have time, do some square foot gardening and plant some beans. Because we need to start getting our beans in. I did bring some bean seeds today. I have a variety that should be able to tolerate the cold. So we might have time for that. Although I should probably check to verify that it's the right kind of variety, because there are two kinds of bean varieties, bush beans and pole beans, and we want to plant bush beans.
When is the right time to plant the pole beans?
Spring is the right time to plant beans in general. And spring is coming up fast, and you know, if you have a bean variety that's a bit more hardy, then you can probably get away with planting them now.
The pole beans are the really tall ones, right? Like
Yes.
the ones that grow straight
pole
up.
beans are vines, and bush beans are, well, bushes. Check it out. Look at those
Ooh,
roots.
exciting.
Pretty cool, eh? So let's pick 9 really good looking seeds.
Are any of those for the hydroponic?
Yes, the rest of them are going to be for the hydroponics and in the soil. So these seedlings are actually going to be used for research. We've been doing some really exciting research here for the past couple of years on antioxidant levels in produce. And so we're interested in finding out if the growing method affects the antioxidant levels within vegetables. So we've been comparing hydroponics, aquaponics, and geoponics, which is just soil-based cultivation, to see which method will yield produce with the highest antioxidant levels. These are some good-looking plants. It's so crazy. You can see like the root structure and everything, and you want your roots to be sort of like that nice white color. Those are healthy roots. If your roots are yellow or brown or something like that, it's not good. Some of these roots are starting to look a bit unhealthy, and that's really just because they were getting too big for the sprays. So I wouldn't keep them in here any longer, so that this is the right time to plant them. And as you may see, we also have some yellowing of the leaves and falling off of the leaves, and that's just because they have become way too big for the sort of
Is this dinosaur?
tray.
This is dinosaur kale?
This is dinosaur kale.
Wow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I am trying this new kale at home. I think it's called red leaf kale or something like that.
Red leaf kale.
It's like a
Red Russian?
red Russian. Yes,
Red Russian.
I really like the red Russian kale.
I've grown it in aquaponics and hydroponics. It grows.
Nice.
I imagine it grows really easy in soil too. So yeah, again, you know, we prepared our solution of dechlorinated water and seaweed extract, and again, seaweed extract is going to provide a little boost of nutrients, especially potassium, and also it contains these compounds called naturally occurring compounds called cytokinins. And cytokinins are sort of like a hormone. They act as a plant hormone to stimulate the development of roots. So really great to have when we're trying to transplant seedlings, because it is a bit of a shock, and this will help ease the shock and stimulate the growth of more roots. So we're just going to let these soak for a minute. Let that seaweed extract really seep in there, and then we're going to plop them in the aquaponic system, and they're going to get going. Later on, I'm going to clean out these systems here and replant all the kale in these too, so that's why I brought the whole tray today. So these are all of our research plots right here. This kale is way overgrown, and as you can see, it's starting to suffer a little So we need to fix this whole situation up here. But yeah, so I think these guys are ready to go in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay them out where we want them.
A common thing that happens with kale is it gets a lot of aphids. So do you want to maybe explain how someone can get rid of aphids? They're these little, I don't know if you can see, they're like these little white bugs. Sometimes they're white. I've seen black ones too. I don't know if those are similar.
Yes, there
to aphids.
are black aphids, gray aphids, white aphids, green aphids, yellow aphids. They come in all colors.
Yeah,
But
so
the ones that I see the most commonly on kale are the gray aphids and maybe the green aphids. And there are a couple of ways to deal with aphids. Your number one way to deal with aphids is to keep your plants healthy, because if your plant is strong and vigorous, it'll have a healthy immune system. It'll actually be able to produce compounds that fight off the pests and deter them. Because honestly, pests in your garden, they're opportunists. You know, think about why pests exist. Like, you know, they didn't come from nowhere. You know, they weren't created when we decided to start growing our own food. You know, instead of picking berries and hunting from the wild. You know, like they've always been there. And what the role of pests is to target and attack weak plants so that they don't hog resources from other plants. So that's sort of like the ecological role. You know, so if you have weak plants, that's going to attract pests because they prey on those weak plants. They're opportunists, you know, and they do have a purpose in the world of ecology, but we don't necessarily want them taking over our garden. So if we don't want pests, keep your plants healthy. And sometimes it's inevitable. Let's say, you know, like conditions are really hot and humid, you know, that's perfect breeding conditions for aphids. At that point, you know, if you start to have a problem, even though your plants are healthy, you could take other measures. And that one thing that is really great is companion planting, and just select plants that will, and plant them around your kale that will attract predators that eat the aphids. So for example, one that's actually native, I didn't know this, but it's a host plant for ladybugs, is mugwort, California mugwort, Artemisia douglasi. If you ever go hiking in an area with running water or a stream, you know, you'll see this plant sort of coming up from the ground with like these leaves that are kind of like, it's like sort of like grayish green leaves, and they kind of have like a sort of like a footprint pattern, I guess, like a dinosaur's footprint. That's California mugwort, very common plant, and it's a host plant for ladybugs. I learned recently another host plant for ladybugs is buckwheat. So if you plant buckwheat in your garden, you'll have it's a host plant for ladybugs, so you'll attract more ladybugs. So and ladybugs deal with aphids.
yeah, they eat the aphids, right?
Yes, the larvae do, and then also the adults do.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now that we're ready is we're going to just sort of scoop away some of the clay balls here and just gently pop it in. I like to sort of bury it up to where the leaves begin to branch off from the stem. And later what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to actually take out the weaker seedling, but we want them to get established first. Just in case one of them doesn't make it, you know, that way we still have a choice as to, you know, well, that way we still have a seedling, a backup seedling we can keep on.
There's a question, it says, I have a lettuce growing from a head that I started, however it is bitter. Why? So maybe like what affects the taste of the lettuces?
Usually lettuce will go bitter when it's bolting. So your lettuce might be trying to bolt, that is produce flowers. So that could be what's causing that. And also temperature can affect the flavor. So depending on the lettuce variety, you know, it has been kind of warm lately. If you're growing it outside, that could affect the flavor and cause it to become bitter. Especially if it's bolting. If it's really bolting, that does it, but warm temperatures can also affect the flavor of many vegetables.
Yeah, I've been harvesting my lettuce as well, because the temperatures are gonna get too hot for lettuces, so you want to.
For many lettuces, not all.
Yeah.
For certain varieties, we have time still. I would recommend if you really want to grow lettuce, even into like June, maybe even July, I would recommend this variety called Mir. You can get it online. I haven't seen it in stores, but Muir, like John Muir.
John Muir.
That's a really great one. It's the thing about aquaponics, and this is an interesting story that I have, is aquaponic systems are generally not as affected by hot temperatures and even cold temperatures as soil, because if you're able to keep your water warm, the plants will respond more to the temperature along the root zones than they will to the air temperature, as an environmental cue. So, and because of that, since I have an aquaponics system at home and I've been able to keep the water cooler than the soil would be if it was just uncovered soil, I was actually able to successfully grow that Muir lettuce in 118-degree weather in full sun.
118, wow.
118 degrees. It got droopy, it wasn't happy, but a couple days later I harvested it and it was delicious.
Wow.
So if you really want to grow your greens in the summer, aquaponics is the way to do it.
Okay.
Just make sure you keep your water temperatures below 80 degrees if possible. I mean, if it gets above 80 degrees for lettuce, it's not that big of a deal, but because that day the water temperatures creeped up into the 90s. But I'm sure it would have decided to start flowering had I waited. So.
There's another question. Romaine lettuce, it is in a pot. Should I replant it?
How big is the pot?
I would say yes. I've noticed typically a lot of plants, they just do better on the ground. But it also depends on the soil biology, right?
It does. And also with lettuces, you can transplant them when they're small, but once they get really big and it's approaching harvest, there's like no point. It's just going to stress the plants and delay their growth and possibly cause them to bolt. Because another thing that causes lettuces to bolt is stress. And transplanting your plants will do that. So if you transplant when they're past a certain size, it can initiate bolting. So there we go. We're planted now. That's all we have to do.
Yay.
This aquaponic system is going to it's going to really get going over the course of the next couple months. Usually the plants take about a week to get settled, and then they'll just take off. Yeah, very exciting. Let's see how these fish are doing. They're just chilling in there. I'm not going to pull any out because it's stressful to them, but we have like 8 tilapia in here. Since we have time, I may as well show how I like to top off the aquaponic systems and how I just care for them in general.
Okay.
It's a bit of a process to care for an aquaponic system. You kind of have to have the know-how, and it takes a while to develop that. But I suppose we could get into that a little bit. We need to get some water into this system, and what do we need to do? We need to make sure there's no chlorine, because what does chlorine do to fish? It damages their gills and kills them. So we have dechlorinated water right here. The other thing, what's that?
I was gonna ask, so then we don't have to add that
The vitamin C?
the vitamin C anymore.
We no longer have to add the vitamin C.
Yeah, so that's another way someone can get rid of chlorine, is if they add vitamin C.
Add vitamin C. 1 teaspoon for 100 gallons is all you need. And that'll get rid of the chlorine. Vitamin C actually reacts with chlorine and chloramine in the tap water. In Los Angeles, we actually have chloramine, not chlorine, which is a lot more stable and dangerous to fish. So you have to make sure you get rid of that by chemical means. I would not leave the water coming out like you can normally do. But I'm going to get some supplies. So we have our test. And also our food-grade phosphoric acid. This stuff is very dangerous. Be careful with it. That's why I have the gloves. I don't want to get any of this on me. But the thing is, in aquaponics, you want to make sure that your pH doesn't change too much within a short time span. Because the fish essentially adjust themselves to the pH of the water. And any rapid changes in the pH is going to cause stress and possibly kill them. So the general rule of thumb I like to follow is do not change the pH of the system by more than 0.2 per day. So this is almost full. Let's just fill that up. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna check the water chemistry. essentially there are 4 things that we test for. 4 test tubes. We test for pH. We test for total ammonia nitrogen, which is ammonia, NH3, and ammonium. We test for nitrite, NO2 minus, and nitrate, NO3 minus. So what we want to have in our system is a pH of around 6.6, give or take 0.2 to 0.4, a nitrate level of 10 to 20 parts per million if we are growing fruiting crops, and a nitrate level of 40 to 80 parts per million if we're growing leafy greens. If you have too much nitrate in your system and you're growing fruiting crops, what's going to happen? Your fruiting plants are not going to flower because there's too much nitrogen relative to the phosphorus and potassium, and they're just going to keep putting on all this lush green growth and not produce any fruit. So it's important to keep your nitrate levels down if you're growing fruiting crops, or alternatively supplement with potassium and phosphorus. And we do supplement our aquaponic systems, and that is also something I'm going to demonstrate today. So we're going to make this episode about aquaponics then. We'll have some time to check out the rest of the garden, and maybe we'll cover square foot gardening in a later date.
Yeah, there's a question I think kind of related to the gardening. Should I plant, so she has this box for her plants, should I plant seeds or small plants in the box now? And what veggies do you recommend planting?
It's up to you.
Yeah.
It's obviously going to be cheaper if you start seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to start from seeds, you're going to have more of a selection in terms of what you can grow. Like
Yeah.
you can get some pretty crazy tomato varieties online that are just gorgeous and taste amazing. And you know, if you go to your local garden center, you're going to have like maybe 5 varieties to pick from, and it's not going to be much variety at all, just pretty standard stuff.
Yeah.
I would say that transplanting is easier. If you want to transplant, then that's the easier way to go. Starting seeds does take a little bit of practice.
And time.
It took me a little bit of time to get it down. You have to be really careful about your moisture when you're starting seedlings, and also make sure that you have adequate light levels.
Mm-hmm.
But you can start seeds. Now is the time to start seeds, I would say. For your warm season vegetables. I'll go into what those are next. And then if you're going to transplant outdoors, I would wait until the end of March, maybe even mid-April. Check the weather. Generally, a good rule of thumb that I like to follow is if, as long as the nighttime temperatures are consistently above 50 degrees, it's generally safe to grow most warm season crops outdoors. If it's a bit lower, then they might suffer. Warm season crops. What are warm season crops? Fruiting vegetables, for the most part. So your tomatoes, your peppers, your squash, your melons, your cucumbers, your beans. Peas are one of the few exceptions. They are a cool season vegetable, even though they are fruiting vegetables. But generally, fruiting vegetables and certain things you can grow year-round. You can start from seed now, or you can transplant now. Like kale's a great example. We can grow kale through the summer here. That's no problem at all. Collard greens. A lot of your brassicas, so Asian greens and mustard as well, are year-round or almost year-round here. You can also can get away with lettuce right now. If you're going to do lettuce right now, I would start from seed, and here's why. Because you're going to have a hard time finding bolt-resistant varieties at a garden store, and what you want to grow right now are the bolt-resistant varieties. They are varieties of lettuce that have been bred to have higher tolerance to hot temperatures before they start producing flowers and become big. So we're going to test our water then.
Yeah.
I like to start with the nitrate test. So here's bottle number 1. You want to wear gloves for this because these chemicals are a little bit nasty, and they'll wash your hands thoroughly after.
Right now we're testing for the water, right?
We're testing the water of the aquaponic system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. 10 drops of number 1, solution number 1. Really hard to get it back in with these gloves on. Just shake it up. And then here's solution number 2. You actually have to shake this one vigorously. It's a suspension. This is the API freshwater test kit. And this is commonly used for aquariums, but you can use it for aquaponics. All right. So, we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this test takes 5 minutes to develop. So if there's any nitrate in here, we're going to start seeing it turn an orange or red color. And I have a colorimetric chart that we can use to read the results. It actually shows. I don't know that one. That's the color chart. It's windy, so geez. I was trying to start seeds in this crazy wind this morning. It was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's super windy here in Northridge.
It's even worse in Granada Hills where I live because I'm starting all of our spring seeds at home. And that's another great thing about aquaponics. It makes it really easy to start seeds because you can set up, you can do this with hydroponics too. You can set up what's called an ebb and flow table, and it's like a trough that you flood with water twice per day. And you put your planting trays in it when you're starting seedlings. You just leave them in there, and it irrigates them for you with nutrient-rich aquaponic water. So this is our nitrite test. 5 drops. So we don't want to have any nitrite at all in our system. Nitrite is toxic to fish. So it's very, very toxic. Even a little bit can stress them out.
That's for all fish varieties?
Yeah, all fish. See, it's starting to turn orange.
Oh, okay.
So we have some nitrate in the system. Ammonia. Ammonia is also quite toxic to fish. Ammonia is less toxic at lower pHs, and this is something very important. Let's say you have an issue in your system, and then you have a sudden increase in the levels of ammonia, an ammonia spike. It's better for the fish to drop the pH down to below 7 than to leave it if your ammonia levels are too elevated. But ammonia is produced by the metabolism of the fish. It's like their urine. It's like a component of their urine. And you just don't want it to be present in your system. And it's the bacteria, the beneficial bacteria, they're called nitrifying bacteria, that will convert ammonia first to nitrite and then to nitrate. So the nitrate is the end product that is taken up by the plants. Nitrate is very safe for fish, but it can get toxic if at very high concentrations. But the plants remove it for us. They're the filters. So the plants actually act as a filter. And they produce food for us. It's a dual purpose.
What is that testing for?
This is ammonia. This is ammonia solution number 2. I just cleaned the system, so hopefully our ammonia levels went back to 0. They were a bit elevated. Elevated ammonia levels can indicate that you're overfeeding your fish. You're feeding them too much food. Because what happens is if there's uneaten food in the fish tank, it'll begin to decay and release ammonia and other toxic compounds. Ammonia is also produced if you have issues with your system's filtration, because this bed right here also doubles as a filter. So if for some reason there's not adequate water flow, it can cause ammonia levels to increase in your system. Because what starts to happen is the nitrogen cycle starts to run in reverse. There are anaerobic bacteria that thrive in the presence of low oxygen environments, that will then begin to take the nitrate and break it back down into ammonia and nitrogen gas, and that'll cause a little bit of ammonia to be in the system. So those are our water parameters.
What was that last one?
That was the pH, actually.
Okay.
So the pH right now is about 6.6, which is perfect.
Okay.
I've been keeping the system pretty fine-tuned.
So what kind of kit is that?
This is the API freshwater.
API freshwater. Okay.
It's about $25.
Oh, and it lasts a long time?
Lasts a very long time. One of these will last me a year and a half.
Wow.
Depending on how frequently you test. I would test once a week, honestly. But you don't have to. Actually, I was going to do the phosphoric acid and keep it. So, pH of the water, right? So the pH solution is actually very non-toxic. The other stuff is what's nasty. So you can get that on you. I wouldn't keep it on you, but you can get it on you and it won't hurt you. I'm not advocating carelessness with chemicals. I'm just saying it's not a big deal. I would not get it on you. I would follow normal lab safety procedures. I highly encourage that. this is a high range pH test solution. We're using it because the tap water has a higher pH usually. You can look here. 8.2. That's way too high. That's way too high. We don't want to add that to the system.
So we add the phosphoric acid
So
to
we
lower
add the
it?
phosphoric acid to lower it. Exactly.
Okay, I'm learning.
Um,
And I hope you guys are learning too, because
yeah, aquaponics is a great way to do it. A couple of the benefits of aquaponics. So less water use. You're going to use less water growing your food aquaponically than you are with a traditional soil garden. And so if you're really concerned about your water bill or just want to conserve water for the sake of the environment, aquaponics is a great way to grow food. Additionally, growth and yields. So if you're able to keep a well-balanced aquaponic system, your growth rates could be 1.5 to 2 times as high than in soil in practice. That's what I found.
yeah. I was gonna say you can kind of tell the
That's hydro.
difference. So,
Um,
oh, this one's hydroponic.
I would
Oh, I
say
wish
it's,
you would've
in
shown.
practice it's usually about 50% faster than in soil outdoors. But if you have an indoor grow, you can, with like super controlled conditions, you can achieve 3 times as fast as soil. So it's the fastest way to grow food.
Wow.
It's faster than hydroponics, and it's also better for the environment than hydroponics because hydroponics produces wastewater. And that wastewater causes algae blooms when it gets into the storm drain and into the ocean. So, and all the waste products of an aquaponics system can be used in your garden as fertilizer. Everything. You get that gunk that collects in the system from the decomposed fish poop, and that's a great fertilizer. It's awesome. I put it in my compost pile. I pour it onto my fruit trees. I love it. And this is only one way to design an aquaponic system. There are some crazy designs out there. This is very simple. So we're testing that water right now to see if we got it right.
How much phosphoric acid do you add?
A couple milliliters. This is 30% concentration. That's as much as I'm allowed to use here because of the safety policies, which are very important. But I am an experienced practitioner, and when I'm at home, I'm using 85%. You can use 85%. So the pH is now down to about 6.4. The colors are a bit faded on here, 6.2, 6.4. And that's fine to add, that's totally fine. So we're going to add that.
Perfect.
Well, I guess, I've demonstrated how to do it once. And so later what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish doing that. I'm going to finish topping off the system. General rule of thumb, you do not want to get your water level in your system to go below 70%. Because what that does is, once you go to add more water, then you create a more drastic change in the water chemistry, and that can stress out your fish. So this system is actually low right now. And I didn't have the opportunity to top it off on Tuesday because I pretty much was cleaning this thing until the sunset, so I had to go. So I would definitely not let the water level get below 70%. Another rule of thumb for feeding your fish, feed them what they will eat in 10 minutes. Let's see if we can get some fish. So we need to get new food, but let's see if we can get new food.
Pellets?
Pellets.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I want to zoom in over there to see the fish eating. They'll come up. Watch. Zoom in down there. Don't get too close. Let's get them.
Let's see. I know. I feel like I've always wanted
they'll
to
start.
see the fish, but it
They have no
sometimes
reason
you
to
can
be
see.
really stressed out right now, so the water chemistry looks fine. And we'll go over the readings.
Let's see. Let's see if we
They
see a
might be
fish.
taking some time. They might be a bit spooked from Tuesday when I cleaned the system because it did,
Oh!
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Oh, it was right there. Oh, it's
They're
like
not used to you, Brianna.
it's like a gray color. I know. I probably scare them away.
I see them splash sometimes, The water is also a bit cold, so that's a factor. They're not going to eat as much when the water's cold. Because they're tilapia. Tilapia love warm water. They're tropical fish.
Can you use goldfish for goldfishes?
Yeah. So
Or what's the best kind of fish for aquaponics?
tilapia? If you
Really,
can keep the water
tilapia?
warm.
Okay.
Goldfish are a real double-edged sword. Here's why.
Huh.
So if you go to the store and order feeder goldfish, I have had anywhere between 5% and 100% of them die, just because of the conditions of water. But if you can get them to survive, they work great. And they can tolerate water all the way down to freezing and all the way up to like 80 degrees.
Wow. What
maybe
about
even higher if they're really mature?
What about koi fish?
Koi are one of the best choices if you can
Really?
afford them.
I know they are expensive.
Tilapia aren't expensive. It's like $3 a fish for tilapia.
Okay.
Feeder goldfish are even cheaper and they're widely available. But tilapia I would get from a professional breeder. Also water predators. Nitrate. 5 parts per million to 10 parts per million, right? So that's low, but that's okay because we have seedlings. It'll increase. Nitrite, 0. That's what we want. And ammonia, 0.25. It's not ideal, but it's not a big problem. That could be an indicator that there's like decaying food in the system. That's probably what it is because I just cleaned the bed, so it shouldn't be the result of anything that's happening with them.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how you replant in an aquaponic system. And just to go over the functionality of the system really quick. So this is our fish tank, right? It's a 90-gallon water tank right here. And we have a pump in the bottom that pumps water up to this bed, right? And then to drain the water out, we have this device here called an automatic bell siphon. And if you zoom in right here to the siphon, you can see this is a bell. And inside the actual siphon, we have what's called a standpipe. It's just a riser pipe that drains directly down to the fish tank. And when you have a device like this, what actually happens is when the water reaches the top, when the water level reaches the top of this standpipe right here, it creates a seal. Once the water completely covers the top of the standpipe, what happens is it creates a vacuum. It causes suction, and then all the water gets sucked out of the bed down back into the fish tank. And when the water level in the bed goes all the way to the bottom, like an inch or two of water in the bed. And then what happens is air bubbles start to get sucked in, and that causes the whole thing to reset itself, and then it fills up again, and it's a cycle. And so this bed will actually fill up and drain every 15 to 20 minutes. And you can see that it's starting to get close to the top.
And so what can you not grow in an aquaponics? Because I feel like you can grow so many things.
Trees. Don't try
trees.
to grow trees.
Okay.
Theoretically, if you have a big enough system with good enough filtration, you can grow anything. These media beds have to be clean because the fish poop will build up in there. But you can also remove that using specialized filters like settling tanks and like settling type filters. There's all sorts of different devices you can use. Settlement tanks, swirl filters, radial flow filters, sand filters. There's all kinds of things you can use to remove the fish poop you can even just put a sock right here and it'll help, but all sorts of things you can use to remove the fish poop, and that'll reduce the amount you have to, it'll reduce how frequently you have to clean the bed. And in theory, you can remove enough of the solids before the water reaches the bed to where you don't have to clean the bed at all. And at that point, you can grow trees, theoretically, but it's not worth it, it doesn't make any sense. I have seen people grow dwarf fig trees in aquaponics. I have seen them grow papayas, which is technically not a tree. I've seen them grow bananas, which is also technically not a tree, but they're perennials.
Wow.
They're large perennials.
So root vegetables, brassicas, berries, anything like
leafy
that?
greens, root vegetables, brassicas, tomatoes are great, eggplants are great, peppers. Pretty much any annual vegetable you can grow in aquaponics. There's, at least in the media bed system. Media beds can grow pretty much anything in terms of annual vegetables. But towers, we talked about the towers during the last slide.
Towers
so you can use
over
those
there.
Towers in aquaponics. But they have less of range in terms of what you can grow. Generally smaller plants. But we could do tomatoes in this. Last year, I have a media bed about half the size at home. I grew eggplants, and they got massive. Right now at home, I'm in my media bed. I'm growing celery. I'm growing peas. I'm growing fava beans. I'm growing that miner's lettuce stuff that I talked about last week. It's doing incredible in the media bed. It's like this tall.
Wow.
And media beds also generally have the fastest growth out of everything. And see, it's drained. All the water is being sucked out. And see what happens if I lift this up? It stops.
That's amazing.
It's a simple but very effective device to drain the water out of the system. So yeah, that's our aquaponic system. Should we talk? Is there any questions about aquaponics before we move on?
I don't think so. If anyone has a question about aquaponics, now is the time to ask.
Well, everybody's thinking about the questions they want to ask, and
Okay, I'm just gonna show the peas again because these just make me so happy.
yeah.
And I didn't even know. See, that's the beauty of like growing different varieties. I didn't even know there was such thing as a purple pea.
Oh yeah.
That's just amazing. And look at all the different colorful flowers. I ate a pea today and Andreas did too. This is a normal traditional green pea. It's beautiful. It's just, and we have more growing throughout the garden, so this is like our, oh, look at this big one. Yeah. Amazing.
It looks a lot like a snow pea.
Yeah. Purple ones are so cool. Like, who would have known there's purple peas?
They're really good too.
Yeah.
In my experience, the purple peas are very similar to sugar snap peas. I would also say that once you grow your own peas, you're never going to want to buy them from the store.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to be growing. I should have grown some at home. I planted these ones here, but I didn't even plant any at home.
Yeah. How are we doing on time? I suppose you have until about 2 o'clock.
I don't have my clock.
Your phone.
With me. It's over there. Do you want to
check? I'll check.
I think it's. I think it's in my bag. Oh, you do? Okay.
Okay, we have 20 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Why don't we talk about these cover crops here? We've got more flowers. Right here. I think this is one of our vetches. Looks like a pea flower. And this is a legume. We talked about cover crops a little bit previously, and cover crops are amazing. I've really become a believer in cover crops and what they can do for you in terms of helping your soil. So in all these beds that we were doing cover crops in, we were having trouble growing things because the soil was depleted. But look at how these cover crops are doing. They're restoring the soil.
Yes.
And yeah, I put some in there too.
Yeah, these are the cover crops. Look at this chamomile. Oh my goodness.
We're going to grow Roman chamomile.
This is beautiful.
This spring. And
I grew
Roman
this from seed.
Is a perennial.
Yeah,
But,
these are other cover crops as well, right?
Yeah, I think some of those are. Other things I just kind of scattered in there. Chaos gardening to get rid of seeds that were expired.
Yeah, chaos gardening, for those of you who don't know, is a...
It's like doing a cover crop with vegetables, because with cover crops you just broadcast the seeds everywhere, right? If you do that with your vegetables, it's a chaos garden. You just have a big mix of vegetables you can harvest from. But cover crops, let's say you have really bad soil in your backyard, right? That is so hard that you can't even get a shovel through it, right? It's just dead. It's like rock almost. You can turn it into the best soil ever with cover crops in a couple seasons.
I'm excited to see
years.
how whatever we plant in here, which you have the
it'll
master
do well.
plan.
We have some great plans for this bed right here, but
Yes.
But the thing is, cover crops really do a number of things depending on the species. So the vetch right here, the vetch and then the peas, these are our nitrogen fixers. They have the ability to partner with these beneficial bacteria to actually physically pull the nitrogen out of the air. The bacteria are able to do this so that the plants can use it. And then when your peas and your vetch die at the end of the season, a lot of that nitrogen will make its way back into the soil and be made available to your next season's crops without having to add a single ounce of fertilizer. I didn't put any fertilizer here with these cover crops. No fertilizer at all. Not a single drop.
You're doing so well.
And then on the other hand, let's talk about our grasses. So we're growing two kinds of grasses in here. Triticale and winter wheat. And what do grasses do? Grasses form a really dense mat of roots just below the surface. What does this do? This increases organic matter in the soil. When we add organic matter to dead soil, which is a mixture of living and dead material that was originally produced by organisms, bacteria, fungi, dead and decaying vegetation, that's the magic ingredient that creates soil. It turns dirt into soil. And then that dirt in your backyard that you can't even get a shovel through, once you have the right amount of organic matter, it's going to look amazing. It's going to look like this almost. No, this is mulch that broke down, but it's going to look amazing. So yeah, and also the grasses are really good at feeding your beneficial biology, because it's really those bacteria and those fungi that are the basis of healthy soil. You want them to be in your soil, and the grass actually pumps out. The grass really does this. It pumps out these compounds, these sugars, and these amino acids into the soil called exudates that literally feed the biology. The grasses garden too, and the other plants in here garden too. They garden the bacteria and the fungi, which help them get nutrients, which help them pull nutrients from the little fragments of rock in the soil and make them available. So once you get your biology stimulated and you get biology in there, that biology will actually physically mine the nutrients out of the soil that are not available to the plants, so that your plants can use them. And then we have our broadleaf plants, like our brassicas right here. A lot of these have big, deep taproots that can punch way deep down into the soil and break it up if it's really compacted. Others produce a lot of foliage and vegetation. And this is great for covering the soil at the end of the season. You want to keep your soil covered. Exposed soil is generally going to degrade and invite weeds in. And also, it'll compost in place. So if you have a lot of biomass production, it's good if you want to compost all of that material in place at the end of the season. So basically what we're going to do when these cover crops are done, we're going to go in here with this tool called an action hoe or an oscillating hoe and just kill them all. We're going to chop them all down and lay them on the surface. We're going to put wood chips on top, let that sit for like maybe a week or two, and then when we want to plant, we're going to pull aside the wood chips a little bit, put in some compost, and then plant our seedlings and seeds in the compost. And then the roots will go down through the wood chips, through the decomposing layers of vegetation, back into the soil that has now been restored by the cover crops, and hopefully they'll degrade. So we'll see how they do.
Yay!
Plans for this bed. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to do a modified version of a Three Sisters garden, because with corn, we're not going to do corn. Instead, we're going to sub in some other things. So the thing about corn is you have to grow it in these big blocks in order to get proper pollination. So this isn't enough space to grow corn effectively. So what we're going to grow instead is amaranth and okra. So many of you may be familiar with okra. It makes these nice pods that are mucilaginous that you can cook and put in soups and stuff. And amaranth is actually both a leafy vegetable and a grain vegetable at the same time. So amaranth is a really tall vegetable that it's sort of like it grows straight up and makes a stalk just like okra. And you can eat the leaves, and also when it goes to flower, it produces these seed heads that you can harvest for grain, and the grain is very similar to quinoa. It's the same family as quinoa. And then along the sides, we'll be doing our summer squash and zucchini. Also, to sub out the beans that would otherwise grow up the corn stalks, we're actually going to do jicama. And so jicama is a root vegetable, but it's also a legume. It's a nitrogen fixer that grows just like pole beans. And so it'll grow up the stalks.
Oh yeah, jicama looks like the root.
Yeah, but you harvest the root. The seeds and the leaves are toxic. You don't want to eat them.
Okay.
At least when they're mature. So we're going to be growing the jicama too.
Exciting.
And also, I'm going to be doing an heirloom variety of squash for my family. We come from Cyprus, and we have this awesome squash variety that grows like a pumpkin, and also pumpkins. And also sunflowers and some other flowers as companion plants. It'll be great. But I just wanted to point this out right here. So see how these brassicas right here are yellowing? That's nitrogen deficiency. So what is the soil telling us? The soil is telling us, yeah, the soil is telling us that it's deficient in nitrogen, right? And then that's really, that's a sign that it's a good thing you're planting this cover crop with all these legumes in it, because now the nitrogen is going to be returned to the soil. So it's like, when you plant cover crops, you start learning how to read the soil. The soil will tell you what it needs, and you can discern that by looking in your cover crop mix and seeing which ones are doing well.
And how?
Understand what function each plant within your cover crop mix plays, and by observing how well they do, you can sort of get a sense of what your soil needed.
And how often should someone plant cover crops?
It kind of depends. I'm really not sure, honestly, and you know, I'm still learning this too. But if you're growing like really nutrient-hungry crops, you could do it every winter. You could do cover crops every winter, and that could eliminate most of your need for fertilizer. It kind of depends on how you want to manage it, honestly. You know, I'm not really sure what best practices are for like the garden. Most of the material I have read is for actual farmers who have like large farms and then grow cover crops after they finish their corn, and they'll do it every year because corn is a really like we're doing cover crops here too, and there. This bed's gonna have sunchokes. So sunchokes are a sunflower, perennial sunflower that's actually also a root vegetable, very high yielding root vegetable. And in there we're gonna do medicinal herbs.
Ooh, medicinal herbs. The names are so like exotic.
Yeah, a couple California native sages in here too. That's what I'm hoping to get my hands on. I know of a nursery that carries them, so hopefully we'll be able to get some native sage in here. That would be amazing to have.
Yes, we had planted some. I planted some broccoli, and
I left it in here.
yeah, it's still there. But you see how it didn't do well because here there's not a lot of sun, but also it was nutrient deficient. Just like our bodies need nutrients to function well, so does soil. It needs nutrients, and
yes,
so the cover crops are hopefully gonna solve that issue.
yes, the cover crops feed the soil. Once your soil is fed, then your plants can grow.
Yep.
Your vegetables are a consequence of healthy soil unless you're dumping on the fertilizer. You know, the analogy I like to use is, you know, if you're applying fertilizer, that's great, you know, but if your vegetables that you're trying to grow are a car that's, you know, if your soil is like a car that's broken down and doesn't have enough biology and fertility in it, and you're just adding fertilizer, it's like hitching that car up to a tow truck and driving the tow truck around and being like, look, I'm driving my car, it's fixed. You know?
That's a good analogy.
But if you actually like maintain your soil and repair your soil and feed your soil, it's like fixing your car so you can drive it.
Right, going to the root of the issue.
Yep. You can use fertilizers, you know, if that's what makes more sense for you than and relying on fertilizers, then that's totally fine. But I think by doing things this way, you'll end up getting better results.
Yes.
Because you're promoting biodiversity too, and a more diverse garden is going to have less pest issues. And cover crops also suppress weeds. That's another thing worth mentioning. They're your engineered weed mixture. You know, they are the weeds, but you're controlling when they get to grow and when they're not. Because weeds have a role to play too. What do weeds do? They restore soil. You know, they cover soil. They protect soil. If you ever see how some weeds grow, like they have these big spreading leaves that cover the ground, that's because they're protecting the soil. So that the soil temperatures don't get too hot, and then so that the moisture doesn't all dry up from the soil. And a lot of these plants, you know, they behave the same way. That's why they're selected for cover crop mixes.
Yes. Look at our sunflowers over there.
Yeah.
They're so tall.
So it's almost time for warm season cover crops. Now these are cool season cover crops. Warm season cover crops get massive. Sunflowers are actually included in warm season cover crop mixes because they thrive in poor soil and they have a deep taproot. So we're going to be doing warm season cover crops in here. The seeds are currently in the mail. I'm going to see how early we can plant them, but you know, and let's get another example here. You know, like we have these plants, right? You know, and then some of them are looking okay, but they're generally not. You know, and they're reaching the end of their lifespan. Like we have this broccoli right here that's about to yield, and it's covered in aphids. If it's covered in all these aphids,
oh my goodness,
what does that mean? It means that the plant is lacking something. It's causing it to be unhealthy. And so, it's probably something in the soil, right? Something's missing from the soil. And the nasturtiums are doing pretty well, but nasturtiums thrive in poor soil. They're doing better than the broccoli.
I know, this is our little cauliflower.
Yeah, and interestingly, the nasturtiums aren't helping with the aphids in this case. I've seen them help with aphids, but they don't always.
Yeah.
So, we're going to get some warm season cover crops in here to fix the soil. And the warm season cover crops are going to add even more nitrogen to the soil and increase the biology even more, because they're way more productive in the cool season. The cool season cover crops have their own benefits, but you know, they have their own advantages and disadvantages, but sort of warm season. Generally, you know, your warm season ones are going to get more done. If you're in terms of like how productive they are. But yeah,
Alright.
looks like the moringa is going to start waking up soon. We can start talking about native plants for a bit for the remainder of our time. So what native plants can you grow in your garden that do really well? California natives. Here's one right here. This one. That's growing underneath the moringa. And it looks like it's about to start flowering. It's going to start growing up and flowering.
Oh, look at the
This stuff, it
peas.
looks like a fern. It's really cute, fuzzy looking. It's called tansy leaf Phacelia. That is Phacelia. Phacelia tansy leaves. And you can get seeds for this online. It's going to be included in some native seed mixtures, and it's used as a cover crop, believe it or not, and it's very popular in Europe. But it's a fantastic native plant to grow. It actually grows wild around here. Either this one or another Phacelia in the same genus. It might be a different one, but it's a California native, and you can definitely find it growing wild, and it does fantastic.
Is that medicinal, or can you use it in?
It's a flower, and it's a fantastic pollinator plant, Phacelia. And this is our moringa. This is going to start waking up soon.
You see how the peas are intertwined?
Yeah, and the peas are fixing the nitrogen for the moringa, so that the moringa can grow stronger during the summer. Because moringa is a summer crop, you know? It goes dormant during the winter. Or malunggay, if you're from the Philippines. You may call it that.
Malunggay.
Probably butcher the pronunciation.
Oh, me too, probably.
But when this is dormant, you know, you can use it as a living trellis for peas. You know, you don't have to necessarily go to the garden center and buy trellises all the time. You can use the plants that you're already growing as a trellis to train your other vegetables.
Yes, that's what we're doing with the amaranth, right, and the okra.
This is exactly just like the Three Sisters method, but moringa is a perennial that will keep getting bigger and bigger until you cut it back. So you'll have even more and more room to grow peas during winter every year, and we'll plant some beans as well to grow the moringa on, to grow up the moringa during the summer, some cold beans. And just keep getting that nitrogen in the soil so the moringa can do really well. And it's flowering too.
Yes, so are the
so-
peas.
And these are pollinator boxes.
Yes.
They need water. But we're actually going to be taking out this tropical milkweed and replacing it with native milkweed. I was able to get some seeds off from the Feed Our Pain Foundation.
Nice.
I've been hearing from my friend who is a native plant expert that the tropical milkweed can actually mess with the monarch butterfly's life cycle and cause various other problems, and that you really want to be growing the native milkweed that goes dormant during the winter here. And spring is the time to start milkweed seeds, native milkweed seeds. So start thinking about that now. The most commonly grown native milkweed around here is called narrow-leaved milkweed. And it's supposed to be pretty easy to grow. Over here is our chaos garden. And just sowed a bunch of seeds here, and here they are coming up, expired seeds, you know, trying to make use of our seeds. Surprisingly, we have some beans coming up. I thought those would never come up, but there they are.
That's exciting. This is
potatoes
our
are
sweet
big.
potato. You
Yeah,
can't
looks-
really see
yeah.
it. It's kind of hard to see, but it's right there.
It's a big honking sweet potato right there.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing sweet potatoes with the sunchokes in the back right there.
Yummy.
Lots of sweet potatoes. The pigeon peas are starting to wake up a bit. This is another interesting tropical perennial. It's a nitrogen fixer as well. Although the right kind of rhizobia, good luck finding them.
Yeah, pigeon peas.
I don't think that they're not doing it.
Pigeon peas are, if you, that's common with like,
what do you call them again in your cuisine?
Oh, gandules.
Gandules.
Yes. A
Yeah.
popular dish for in Puerto Rico is arroz con gandules, and gandules is pigeon peas. So that's what we're growing. That's exciting.
these will get up to 10, 12 feet tall. I've seen them get pretty big. And you can cut them down and use them as green manure. And green manure just refers to like green plant material that you can use for compost or mulch. And it's free. You can produce it. You know, like we use the passion fruit vines as a green manure for our compost. We use the sunflowers as green manure. We chop and drop our green leaves off of our citrus trees, and they start breaking down like this. That's green manure.
Look at all the miner's lettuce.
The miner's lettuce. We're gonna get to that next.
Is it flowering?
It is flowering.
Oh.
I'm seeing some little native pollinators coming to it, or what look to be native pollinators, but you see little cute little pinkish white flowers?
Yeah.
So we're going to let this keep flowering and go to seed. That's pretty much the plan. It's really good. And because we want this to grow all around the fruit trees, because you look at how much it likes the habitat here, you know? You can utilize the space underneath your fruit trees as long as you pick the right plants. And we're also going to be putting around the fruit trees is this plant called comfrey. It's a perennial that's like sprawling. It makes these big leaves, and it sends a deep taproot down into the soil up to 12 feet down that can absorb water and nutrients from way below the soil and bring them to the surface to get into your garden. So it's great to grow around fruit trees. You can cut off the leaves and use them as mulch, and also use them to make fertilizer.
All right. Well, there's no more questions in here.
No more questions.
So, but I think we've reached our time limit.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes. If
you
you have
a thing or two.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I know I did. I always do, but if you have other questions, we have the Ask a Master Gardener feature on the MMC website, and you can put in questions there, and someone who is well knowledgeable in gardening can help you answer that, specific to whatever you're growing at home or want to grow. And yeah, also keep on the lookout for events and stuff that the MMC has. They have, yes, thank you, Alondra, for putting that link there. MMC has a lot of virtual events that are open not only to CSUN staff, faculty and students, but some of them are also open to our community. So it's open for anyone. We have our weight management series that is starting tomorrow. I will actually, I'll be teaching that class, and yeah, it's going to focus on a lot of like basic nutrition topics, and we have other workshops happening at the Maryland Magrum Center, so you can visit our website to register for those events. And also we have a newsletter as well that is sent every week, and you can stay updated on our events through there. So,
and I also wanted to add two things.
Okay.
About videos that are getting up that are going to be released very soon.
Our YouTube channel.
Yes, the YouTube channel. Check out the Maryland Magrum Center YouTube channel. We are on YouTube. There is a video coming out on cover crops and several videos coming out on herbs you can grow in your garden. So keep an eye out.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.
See you next week.